Brady Gaster, and what we're going to talk about today, obviously, is Squad. So Squad is essentially a multi-agent framework that I built along with my friend Tamir and some other friends, Dina and David. They helped out with docs and some great providers for the memory system, as well as a lot of contributors, about 50 contributors. I'll tell you the quick story about it. The idea behind Squad is that we wanted to give you a way to unlock your coding ability so that you could, get things done more quickly with Copilot. Last year I spent the majority of 2025 with David Pine and some other folks kind of working through the process of trying to build a couple of different agentic frameworks out, really kind of revolving around Aspire. The idea was Aspire has so many great opinions inside of it and so many great integrations, as Dan was pointing out a minute ago. One of the things that I wanted to do was I thought, with so many great opinions, emerging inside of Aspire, it seemed like, a great place for us to be able to build, an agent that could just churn out Aspire apps. Shocking, easy sounding idea. In practice, a lot harder than you would think. Building one of these agent frameworks, especially in 2025, before we had really efficient models, was complicated. It was definitely a complicated endeavor. We tried a bunch of different times. One thing that we kept running into was context problems. The context window would get overloaded. Or you would load 60% of what you needed into context. You would begin to work on whatever your project was, and you would run aground pretty quickly. It got frustrating. By the end of the year, we had a couple of interesting prototypes kind of working out, and then after the first of the year, I was actually working through a system. I had just started experimenting with the GitHub Copilot CLI, and we just put it out there. It was getting really hot. And I heard that we supported multi-agency with things like Fleet inside of GitHub Copilot CLI. So what I wanted to do was to try that out. So I thought, let me build one agent that represented, say, app service, one agent that represented, say, container apps, one Aspire, et cetera, et cetera. And the idea was to kind of put them in the room and ask them questions and, kind of get them to collaborate. And it just seems like so long ago. It was only in February. And it was interesting at first. Copilot simulated the experiment, because I specifically said, simulate a team of agents working together. So that's what Copilot did, and it said, you didn't ask right, essentially. So I went to the Copilot CLI chat board inside of our wonderful Teams community, and I asked some folks there. I said, how do you make this thing work? And they said, you're doing it wrong. So I asked for a prompt, and somebody smarter than me gave me a great prompt that basically said, fan out and create a series of agents that actually collaborate together. And it was cool how quickly it worked. You've probably seen this in Copilot CLI. You begin to see the purple lines kind of going up, indicating to you, there's agent 1, there's agent 2, there's agent, or whatever their random names were. And I thought that was too hard. I had to go and ask somebody who knew how to do it. I had to go, talk to somebody who knew how to write prompts better than me. I wanted to make that easier. So, my whole process there was to really just kind of make the, process easier for you to be able to do these kinds of things. Now, what I ended up finding at first was that if I wanted to create a series of agents that kind of behaved the same way, so they all had the same instruction file, they all had the same goal, they all had the same this, the same that, whatever, I found that they would work pretty well. But you kind of got the effect of essentially Hungry Hippos, the game from when I was a kid, at least. Probably more fun games when you're a kid. But the idea of the agents were fighting over the work. So they knew that they had a task to do. They all had the same amount of information. They all had the same training. It was like a bunch of clones. So they went off and they tried to do things, and they were pretty good at it. They were, more efficient than just me talking directly to Copilot myself, in an iterative loop, because they would, fight it out and figure it out together. But then what I thought was, let me actually give them all individualized training. So let me give this one training for this one training for that, this one training for that. Today you can really do that with a prompt. You can write a pretty long prompt, and you can emulate, kind of the idea of a squad. But what we found was, if I drag this window over into view, what we found was around 20% improvement if the individual agents had, essentially responsibilities, if they had jobs to do. And not only if they had jobs to do, but, no pun intended, if they had agency to do that job however they wanted to. What we found is that they would, average about 20% better. Now, on a small, task like create a snake game for me using HTML and JavaScript, it's really not that big of a deal. It's a couple hundred lines of code. When you're talking about like an enterprise migration with like thousands of nodes and servers and databases and whatever else, that could be months of work. So you're talking, 20% could be a big deal. So at that point in time, I thought I need to make a framework to make it easier for folks like me who just want to get started really quickly, building a game, or, diving into an existing project, or, insert your goal here. Over the course of the Super Bowl weekend, I actually began working on Squad and got it done pretty quickly. It was actually kind of fun. At some point, we turned the squad on itself. So at some point, we actually created a squad whose job it was to write Squad. So we had, a team of agents working on a team of agents. So this is the Squad repo. You'll see here it's Brady Gaster /squad. A lot of folks are using it both internally. A lot of folks are using it externally for their open source projects as well. And there's a lot of customers using it internally with their teams. So we do have a lot of folks using it throughout the ecosystem, both the .NET ecosystem as well as lots of other ecosystems. We've written Java code with it. You'll see me do that a little bit today. I have a couple of iOS apps that I've written for it, a shopping list app as well as a trivia game, all of which use GitHub models since I work there. And the experiment was really to kind of, make this easier for folks. So what we've got in the docs, if I were to go over here to, getting you started, we've got a couple of things in the docs that are going to go away, like personal squads. Personal squad is going to go away because of things like this wonderful product here you'll see me use later called Scout, as well as a lot of other, fantastic products that exist to help you do, manage your life, essentially, not just manage your code, but manage your life. We started that experiment, and what we found really quickly was we didn't really want to be the everything. We wanted to kind of be inside of everything, if you will. So what we wanted to do was to make it easier for you to build these apps, and sometimes actually inject Squad into your application, as you'll see me do later. Some of these things, like we took out personal squad, so you will see this banner up here. We're going to be updating the docs right before we get to 1.0. There's a couple of features we want to ship before we get to 1.0. We're this close, I promise. But the first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to go over here to sample prompts. And in sample prompts, we just have a list of, prompts of things to get you done. And really, this first one is kind of how we get started with almost every demo with Squad, is we'll build some sort of a game. Today I'm just going to build the retro snake game. So I've gone ahead and copied that prompt to my clipboard. And what I'll do now is I will really quickly flip over to my CLI window that I've got open right here. Now, I've just got an empty source directory. I'm going to make a new directory here. We'll call it snake. I'm going to cd in the snake. I'm going to do git init -b main. And now we have a brand new empty directory. Nothing up my sleeve except for a bunch of ink. So what I'll do real quickly is I'm just going to do a code insiders dot. So you can kind of see that what I have here is literally a empty folder. See that there's literally nothing in my nothing in here whatsoever today at all. So that's good. There will be some code in here in the future, which we'll get to momentarily. Before we dive in, though, what I want to talk about is how you would install Squad. The good news is it is literally just an npm package. You can install it globally using npm install -g. The idea behind it is you're going to have the CLI directly on your computer. We do have a REPL experience. We would encourage you not to use it and to instead use wonderful products like GitHub Copilot CLI. And other products that will have Squad in them, as you'll see momentarily. We also do have a TypeScript SDK. You can build interesting products using this SDK. I have a repository called Squad IRL that kind of shows how you could use this TypeScript SDK to, we'll say, go do interesting things. One of my good friends, MVP Jeremy, he actually wrote his the 20th contribution, the 20th app in the repo. Was his contribution. It was a YouTube playlist builder based off of mood. So you kind of tell it what your mood is, and it goes off and builds you a playlist of songs from YouTube. I found it to be rather charming. But what we've got today is going to be, our snake games. We're going to get started here. So I'm going to go back over to my CLI window right here. And first thing you're going to want to do whenever you want to start with a brand new, repo where you want to use Squad, or if you want to add Squad to an existing repo, is you want to type Squad init. And I'm going to actually add this no workflows switch right here. The idea is that you can actually use a squad member whose name is Ralph, aka the Ralph loop. And Ralph is essentially your work monitor. A lot of what Ralph will do, we use GitHub Actions. In my case, I'm not going to be using GitHub Actions for that. I would either use Ralph. I would either use Squad's watch command, or I would use Squad's loop command, which will actually give you the opportunity to loop Squad and a loop and just do agentic loop. So I'm just going to sit in the CLI today, as a lot of us do. But what you'll see is I've actually laid down the Squad agent files. And if I were to open up those files real quickly, I could show you real quickly what they look like. You will get this .squad directory right here. Inside of it, you'll see a bunch of folders, which we'll walk through once we are actually generating some stuff. So we'll go ahead and move on to that phase now. So at this point, I could go ahead and hop into Copilot. What I'll do first is I'll just go ahead and do that, because I am ready to go. I'm just going to hop right into Copilot CLI. And I'm going to do this step-by-step process so you kind of see like exactly how you would go through it as a new user. I'll hit 2 because I want to remember this folder and trust it for future sessions. We're good there. Now what you'll see is that I'm just in regular Copilot CLI mode. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to type Shift-Tab 2 times. I'm going to go into Autopilot. The reason I'm going to do that is Squad reads and writes to and from files very, very rapidly. And it does a couple of other things, like uses MCP tools very rapidly. So what I want to do is I'll go ahead and approve all those tools, because I'm going to be sitting here working with these agents. They're not going to be unattended until much later when I trust them. So I'm going to go ahead and presume that we can go on Autopilot. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type agent. And since I've already done that squad init command, I've got my agent file down on disk. So that's going to light up here in a second. And you'll see the list. Now, this is the only time you'll have to do this. I'll have to enable all permissions. You'll see that I'm in that default Copilot agent, or I can go down and I can select Squad, which is what I want. And you're good when you see Autopilot and you see Squad right here. And at this point, we are ready to go. Now, if I were to begin prompting, the first thing that's going to happen is the Squad agent is going to go, hey, you told me you want to use the Squad. I don't have any, there's not a Squad here. You haven't told me what you want to do. You haven't told me what you want to build. I don't know what to do. I'm going to paste in this prompt, and it's going to say build a browser-based snake game using vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, no frameworks. I'm going to say start building immediately, but this time I'm going to do one extra line. Actually, it's going to go ahead and do it. I was going to give it one more command. What we'll do first is we're going to cast a team of agents. And the idea there is that it's going to look at your prompt and it's going to say, it looks like you're going to need a team of agents. It looks like you're going to need a this and a that and a whatever else. You'll see the tools that are getting called as we move through, such as searching the directory tree and so forth and so on. Now what you're going to see is the agent's going to say the team exists, aka the squad agent is there, but there are no members there. So I want to go ahead and propose a team really quickly. So I'm going to propose it says 3-person squad, 3-agent squad. We have to put a bug on that. 3-agent squad for this. And we're going to go Seamus, Link, Toad, and we always get Scribe, Ralph, and RAI. And the universe is going to be Nintendo. Pretty cool. So in this case, it's gone with a Nintendo universe, which is good. I'm fine with that, given it's a game and we're building a game here. But I've also got Scribe, Ralph, and Ray. Let me explain to you who Scribe, Ralph, and Ray is. Now, in any of these LLM systems, you're really going to need to support some sort of memory. Now, the way Squad works is we actually have a memory system provider. The default memory provider is going to be files on disk. So each one of these agents is going to have their own file, and each one of the Squad teams is going to have their set of files as well. The idea is is agents are going to have their own charters, and then your team is going to have kind of a collective charter where they work together and do things together as a team. So these three members, we've already talked about Scribe. Scribe really just reads and writes the files to disk really quickly, so that all of the decisions that the team is making, is consistent and written down. Ralph, we've already talked about, is going to be the work monitor. Ralph's job is going to be to, I could say Ralph loop, and Ralph's going to keep the agents working. And then Ray's job, Ray is really the responsible AI awareness, making sure content safety and we're doing the right thing when it comes to AI. We just built that in because we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by, AI usage. So at this point, it's going to say start building immediately. In some cases, it's going to wait and go, how does that team look? If I wanted to, I could change the team up. You'll see me do that here in a moment. For now, I'm just going to let them keep on rolling. Going to keep going, and you'll see that they've already started building. So the team's acquired. Now they're launching the build, and you can see here one other piece of evidence, one piece of feature that we have is that these agents are going to be able to pick their model whenever they want. So you can pin them. So I could say this agent will always use GPT this, or this agent would always use Anthropic that if I wanted to. But in some cases, you're going to want them to dynamically pick. You do have the capability to pin it. You can go directly in their charter and edit it, or I could say, data, you always use, GPT 5.4, or chunk, you always use, 4.0 mini, for whatever reason, if I wanted to do that. So I can, customize that if I want to, but, for all intents and purposes, they're usually going to go for kind of an automatic approach. So what are they actually doing on disk? First, what I'll do is I'll open up another instance of VS Code. I'm just going to really quickly open up a new window, and there we go. So what I'll do first is I'm going to open up a different squad folder. We'll open up the squad. Actually, yeah, is that the one I want? Yeah, I'll do that one. We'll open up the squad. All right, so at this point, I've actually got the squad repo opened up in VS Code. And what I want to show you real quickly is kind of what those files look like. And we'll go back to ours once the game is finished, and we can actually look at a smaller squad. So you'll see here that inside of the squad folder, you're going to have these series of agents. So if you look here at agents, you can see that my agents are all named after Apollo 12, I believe, characters. So I would look at Booster, and if I were to look at Booster's charter, you can see Booster's job. They're the CI/CD engineer. This is what they do. This is what they own. This is how they work, and these are the things that they kind of do. Boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. The model preferred, they can pick whatever they want. Now, history is interesting. If I were to look at history, what you'll see is that over time, Booster has learned a couple of valuable things. So let me go back to the preview mode. That's better. You'll see here that they've done a bunch of workflow files. They've identified a couple of patterns, a couple of pipeline things, et cetera, et cetera. If I were to look at Disky, you can see, oh, that's somebody else. If I look at EECOM, I know they've been busy. EECOM is going to be, open up Fido. Fido is going to be the quality owner. Now, Fido has actually done quite a bit of pruning over the time, looked at security stuff and whatever else. So you can see over time, these agents are actually going to learn, and they're going to get better when it comes to working on their project, the project that is in the same repo that they're in the project with. Over time, their files will get larger, all right? And that means what you think it means. That means that over time, they're going to get better, and then they're going to get worse because their context window is going to get pretty large. You can actually go in and you could say, squad or team. You could say team, take a nap. I'm not going to do that right now. Take a nap. Or you could say team reskill. And what you will actually see them do is you will see them clean out their charters, clean out their histories. And when you call the reskill method, what you will actually see them do is look through their charters, and they will actually find opportunities where they can take things that are in their charter and they can convert those into actual skills. And those skills, as you know, will actually save you on context, because really the only thing the agent looks at until such time as they need to use the skill is going to be the front matter. Now, the other thing that will do is that will help you across all of your agents for one reason that I'll kind of go into here. So let's say you're using a model that supports, we'll say all of your agents are using a model that supports 200,000. Okay, so that's your token window. That's how much room you have available in that particular conversation if you needed to use the whole thing up. Now, that's if you're dealing with one agent at a time. Now, in a squad conversation, you essentially have that times n, times however many agents you have at your disposal, because each one of them is going to have their own session. Each one of them is going to use their own room and do their own reasoning. And then they kind of come back together, and that's how Scribe writes the data back and forth. And then Copilot is your coordinator at the very end, kind of gets everything together, congeals it, and gives it back to you as the user. And then you can interpret what the squad said, and you can work together with Copilot, your coordinator, who facilitates your squad to move forward. Now, that will use a lot more tokens. You can see down here that I've used 167 tokens during this conversation. It's because you're using n agents instead of one agent. So instead of you looping with Copilot, sequentially, and Copilot learning what you want, and you having to write an instruction file and all that, in this case, they're communicating. They have a bunch of instruction files. They each have their own charters, and then they have their collective charter at the end that kind of says, how the team's routed and everything else. Now, at this point, they're finished. But I do want to point out they will go faster than if you're, dealing with one, conversation with, Copilot itself. But that will come at, a bit more token usage. It's just the nature of the beast. You'll see here are my smaller agents that we've just created. Here is Chunk's test charter. Here is Data's charter. You can see that each of these agents is still pretty small. They'll learn, over time. You can see that they're already kind of learning some stuff as they've been building the game out. Now, what I can do here is I can right-click on this index.html file, and I can say open an integrated browser. Uh-oh, that's weird. Is that right? Open an integrated browser. Why is that happening? With a trusted folder. Oh, is the folder not trusted? I guess the folder's not trusted. Let's trust the folder. Restricted mode. Trust. That's good. Okay. Ooh, that's good. Thank you for doing that. Open in the browser. There we go. So now I've got CRT Snake. Let me zoom out a little bit so I can see the whole window. And now I could do this, and I can play the game. Now, if you've seen me do this before, I'm not too good. There we go. I'm already dead. You can see that I'm not too good at this game, but there we go. All right, so you can see that I'm kind of trucking along and playing my snake game. So you can see that in a few seconds we were able to create a team of agents, give them a task, go build a snake game, and then they went off and they built that as I was sitting here talking to you about what Squad is and what you can do with it. Now, the one thing that I would call out here, if I look at our agents, so we have Chunk, Data, and Mikey, and then we have the built-in agents. Now, we don't have any kind of content about what the game is, like how the game is built. I would need to look at the HTML and figure it out and whatever. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna say team fan out, and this is really something when you're talking to Squad from the CLI. Copilot really likes to operate on your behalf. Copilot's very eager. So what you can do to kind of top Copilot into using the Squad is to kind of say team fan out and then give it your prompt. At that point, Copilot kind of, I don't want to say gets out of your way, but at that point, Copilot knows, I don't want to do this task for Brady or for the human. I want to, they want their squad to do it for them. So, he's used to using, Brady's used to using his squad instead of just me. So I'm going to go off and use the squad. But if for whatever reason, Copilot wants to do the work for you and you don't want it to, you just hit that escape key and then you go out and you say team fan out or squad fan out and it will do the work. Now, if you are in the GitHub Copilot app, one of our favorite things in the world, you can actually say squad and then type your prompt. And if there's a squad in that repo, it will use the squad at that point. I found that to be rather cute. It will first look and see, is there a tool named squad? No, there's not. It will look and see at that point, is there an agent named squad? Yes, there is. We will have an agent menu coming, I think, in the future, where you can actually select the squad. But in the meantime, you can just type the word squad and then give it your prompt, and the GitHub app will actually go off and use your squad. So that's kind of cool. At this point, I want to use my lingo, team fan out, and acquire a new agent whose job it is to build good documentation and mermaid diagrams. Then put them to work building a document on how the game works, including some mermaid diagrams of the flow through the game. Sure, great. And what will happen now is the squad will literally go out and build another agent's charter. If I wanted to spend a little time here, I could say go and do some research. They're going to be mouth. I was kind of going with the Goonies theme. It's kind of cool. They're going to go. They're going to go out and they're going to build a new agent. That agent's job is going to be to write kind of the description of the app, to write documentation, and to kind of build out a mermaid diagram, kind of articulating exactly how the whole application works end to end, which I thought was kind of required. If you're building an app and you want to have somebody else discover the app, or you want to have an agent discover the app, one of the good things that you can do is you can actually produce a good mermaid diagram in there, and a human or an agent can actually read it and kind of understand what is in that application, what's in that repository. So that's kind of good. So you can see that we've got mouth. Mouth is going to be dispatched and begin doing the docs work, and in a moment we should have a pretty cool document there. There we go. General purpose 5.4. At some point we're going to have a new document here that kind of covers the entire architecture of the game. So what I would like to talk about next is the opposite of this. What you can do when you want to kind of throw a squad at a real problem. When you want to throw a squad at kind of an existing repository, or a set of tech about which you know very little. In that case, the squad is actually pretty good too. So it's not just for greenfield, little game projects. You can actually use the squad for pretty significantly sized projects as well. I'll give you a quick example of one of those now. Before I do, I'm going to go out to my Azure portal real quickly, and I'm going to fire something up because I'm going to want you to see this in a moment. We go out to here, and I'm going to open up a couple of quick windows. I know that you can't see it. That is by design. No offense. Because it's going to be a surprise. And then I have to log in again. So there's that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you another small project that you may have heard about if you've been in the .NET community for some time. That project is called .NET Terrarium. Now, sometime back, where is it? Thought I had it open. Don't I have it open? Let me go check. Brady Gaster. Go to it. So I've got a fork of the Terrarium project right here. There you go. So I have a fork of the Terrarium project, and the idea behind this project is, I wanted to fork Terrarium and see if I could get Squad to update Terrarium to .NET 10. Now, a minute ago, we started up a new agent to actually go through the process of documenting our little game that we had created. And I'm looking at it now. I realize we have a bunch more work to do on this. But I'd say like the third or fourth day of Squad being a thing, I thought, I wonder if I could actually throw it at Terrarium and see what we could get out of it. You can see, I left off in the other conversation we were talking about writing docs. Well, one of the things that I did is as we worked on this project for 2 nights, actually made sure to journal the entire thing. So actually, hired a bunch of teammates to in this case, I hired Beth as in Massey to kind of document the whole thing. And essentially, wrote one blog per chapter. So each essentially milestone that the team worked through, they wrote a blog post about it to kind of celebrate the work that they were doing. And over a period of time, they were able to get it done. Now, how did I do this? This is kind of the cool part. Now, what you saw me do a minute ago was just take Squad and just go at it. Write a bunch of code. Just kind of a one-shot kind of approach. That's you can do that if you want, but a lot of folks like myself really like to plan things out. You want to like spec your project out. With a great product out there called Spec Kit. One of the things we talked about doing, and actually have a contributor pinged me this morning, bringing the two products a little bit closer together, because the agents are really good at writing specs. Spec Kit's really good at doing things with the specs. It seems like a great marriage of these two things to kind of come together. But At first, one of the things that we did, Shane Boyer actually contributed the ability for Squad to actually be very aware of the idea of writing PRDs and filing GitHub issues. So the first thing that I did was I, threw a squad at the Terrarium codebase, which you'll see me do here in a moment, an existing codebase. And I said, look around, tell me what you see. We're going to update this thing to .NET 10, deploy it to Azure, see what happens. They looked around, they figured out what they wanted to do. And I said, first, inspect it, figure out what we need, build the team out, make sure that we've got specialists in WCF and remoting, because it still had remoting in it, all the different tech. Make sure you've got specialists in all those different areas, because it's going to be a big project. We tried this a few times. So just make sure you can, you're going to have everything you need. So they went and they created everything. And then I said, write a PRD. They wrote a single PRD that was essentially the entire plan to upgrade .NET Terrarium from pre.NET 1.0 all the way to .NET 10. Sorry, I've not done 11. I should do that. I'm slow. I don't work there anymore. But the idea was, see what they could do. Now, I actually had them write the PRD, and then I said, break the PRD into 6 to 8 hour size chunks of work over a series of milestones. I think they did 3 sprints. They broke up the work into really small units of work, such as, changing TCP sockets from SignalR, modernizing it, to P2P. And then I said, don't just commit the work randomly. I need you to create branches and do this the real way. I need you to actually build this out, a PR at a time, a branch at a time, and, keep going on it. At the end of it, they were able to get it done. And they were able to build it out completely in .NET 10. And I showed it to my boss, and he was like, that's cool. Deploy it to Azure, I'll be impressed. So at that point, I figured it was .NET 10. What I could do is I could break this up across 3 container apps, because I have one. One of the container apps is going to be a SQL database, so I can start and stop it. I know, SQL in a container is kind of janky, but it's really just a dev environment kind of thing. But the idea was to really just run, the SQL in one container, then run the server side in a second container, and then run the third container app for the front end, and host it up in Azure Container Apps and see how far we could get with it. And we got pretty far with it. Unfortunately, the game will run about as long as I remember the Terrarium game running whenever I would run it before. The plants would grow. Sorry, it's taking a minute to render. The plants would grow, and then the animals that would eat the plants, they would come in and they would eat all the plants. And then a couple of the animals that come around and they eat all the animals, would eat all the animals, and then we have a bunch of plants. So that actually still happens. You can see the rendering's pretty slow, but hey, we got Terrarium running in Azure Container Apps, running at .NET 10. It doesn't look as good as it used to look. I definitely have some work to do on that. I love the rendering from left to right, still pretty slow. But hey, we got this done. Now the questions, it took about 2 days. It took about 2 days of autonomous work. And I would say we had probably two crashes. I started it before I went to bed one evening, woke up in the morning, and it was about a third of the way finished. From what I could tell, didn't want to use the compute during the day because I was busy working, building Squad out. So I stopped, and then that night started the process up again. It ran that night, and by the end of the second evening, we had it working. So that was kind of cool. We upgraded Terrarium, almost autonomously in 2 days. That was kind of fun. Now, what we've done here is we've actually flipping back to our game. You can see that we've actually done the process here of documenting everything. If I were to go over here and look at, it looks like they've made it game.md. So if I were to open up game.md, you can see there's our Snake game architecture guide. So you can see there's kind of the overview of the game, all the different things that we use to build it. Here's the mermaid diagram. Yay. They didn't color code it. Not bad. Sometimes you'll see interesting color choices, lots of odd color choices. Then you'll see here, you could probably have them align this better. There are some different mermaid skills that you could have your mermaid agent go review if you wanted them to kind of improve the way they want it to look. But it's up to you. It's up to you and your agents, if you will. But you can kind of go from there. Well, cool, we have a little bit of an error. They don't have it perfect. So there's that. So moving right along, I will show one thing real quick. If you are in VS Code and you prefer that experience to using either the GitHub app or the GitHub CLI, I do want to call out that you do have this little agent menu right here, and you can select squad. So you actually could pick your squad agent here and party on it directly inside of VS Code, should that be your flavor. So without further ado, I think we've shown kind of how we could at least start like a greenfield project, and we've shown kind of how Squad can, write out issues and PRDs and kind of get you rolling when it comes to, actually, planning your game or planning your project out. What I'll do now is I'm just going to really quickly exit my CLI session real quickly. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to CD back here. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go out. I'm going to do a quick search. I want to look for sample Java pet store repo. GitHub. And right there. This was application pet store EE. Okay, we'll go with that one. Cool. All right. Pet store Java EE7. Cool. Okay. Does this have source code in it? Looks like it has source code in it. You can see I know a lot about Java. All right, cool. Looks like we have source code. Okay, good. All right, yeah, we do. All right, so what I'll do now is I'm going to fork. Oh, actually, I can't fork it because I'm in the wrong thing here. So I'll change my guy. And now I can fork this repo. I'm going to fork this over into my Brady Gaster account. And I got the fork. And once it comes back, let me hit refresh. There we go. I want to grab this, and I'm going to flip back over into my CLI instance, and I want to do I'm going to say git clone, paste this in, and then I'm going to CD into it. That's it. And code screen. And what you'll see now is, so I'm in a Java repo. I can barely spell Java. I drink it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to squad in it. Okay. So I'm going to squad in it one more time, and I'm going to do no workflows because I won't need to use Ralph here. Okay, cool. Clear. And now I will go into Copilot, and I'll show you one real quick shortcut. You can do this. You can do -- agent squad. And that will actually open up your Copilot instance and default the agent that you're using to be the squad one. I'm going to say, yes, you can trust this repo. So we are trusted. And I'm going to do that shift tab trick one more time. And I'm going to do Autopilot. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, so I inherited this project, and I don't know Java. I've been asked to upgrade this to a later version and get it deployed to Azure. Please acquire a team of agents who can help me with this, as I don't know Java at all. Cool. There we go. I'll enable all permissions. We're good there. Now what's going to happen is Copilot is going to, Copilot is going to look through this repository and kind of figure out what's in this repository. It looks like they can see that it is indeed the Pet Store EE project. So Copilot's going to look through and kind of figure out what Copilot thinks I need, and kind of offer me a recommendation. I don't know what universe they're going to go with in terms of their naming. In the past, I've asked them to go with famous pets when I've been doing the pet store demo. And they can, go with, famous pets from pop culture or something. Okay, cool. So now you can see they have looked through and they have gone with what looks like Futurama, I believe. Zoidberg, Fry, there we go. So they figured out that I'm going to need Java, Jakarta EE, REST APIs, et cetera. I'm going to need Amy there to help with Azure deployment, containerization, CI/CD, and then the others. So at this point, they figured out, Copilot has figured out really what I'm going to need in terms of, my individual squad to help me with this project, because I clearly don't know anything about Java. Come from the .NET community. And then they're going to go off and they're going to build that set of agents so that I am ready to go with a new Java project if I wanted to actually build something with Java. So this kind of shows you a good example of how we can actually target an existing brownfield repository, something legacy, and kind of bring it forward. We've had a lot of folks use Squad for that kind of a thing. We've used it for that as well. I've used it to kind of update some things that I haven't wanted to touch manually. It's been very helpful for that. And another thing that Squad is really helpful for, that we've seen a lot of folks use, is it's helpful for going out and doing research. So what you can do is you can actually kind of say, I want, one agent to always be my fact finder, to go and do research on a particular topic. I want one to always, be the discerning voice in terms of whether or not this is a valuable thing for us to investigate any further, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that you'll find in the documentation, if I were to flip over to it real quickly, is that we give you the opportunity to kind of create the idea of ceremonies. So you can actually kind of say, I want you to, this is, the ceremony for doing research. This is the ceremony for filing issues. This is the ceremony for, doing work on an individual, bug or a problem. For me, the ceremony that I have my squad kind of carved out to do is, I'll file an issue and the squad will pick up that issue on intervals. And I'll file an issue, go do research on whether or not we should write a Kubernetes extension for Visual Studio. And they will go out, and that's the next demo. They'll go out and they will do some market research. They'll look at GitHub issues. They'll look at this. They'll look at that. They'll come back and they'll go, this sounds like a good idea. This is the scope of work we think it's going to entail. We don't know if it's worth the effort, or here are our concerns. So what I'll do is I'll say, do the research, come back with a go, no-go vote. If it's a no-go vote, just close the issue and kind of write another issue summarizing why it's a no-go. If it's a go, write me an elevator pitch. And in that elevator pitch, kind of talk about, pitch it to me so that I, want to invest the time to, let the agents actually go off and build it. If it's a go, I also want you to go ahead and write a PRD. And then I want you to go ahead and write an implementation plan, because I know I'm going to ask you for that. So just go ahead and spend the time to go ahead and write those out for me so I can figure out if this is, an area that I want to invest in. Sometimes I will come back and I will have good ideas on the table in the morning. I'll have a research bot that actually or a research team that will wake up using a GitHub action every evening and go off and do this kind of research. I think I start them off on the GitHub trending developers and GitHub trending GitHub trending repos for the day, and kind of figure out what's happening that day in open source with agentic stuff. It's always pretty interesting to kind of see what they come back with. I'm going to look real quickly in StreamYard because I think I might have a couple of questions. So let me look. Some questions about doing presentations on a Mac versus a PC. I've got my Mac right here. I had some problems with it this morning, so I didn't get to present on it this morning. I use both, and I use both because I like to test how the squad can help me. I've never written any iOS applications outside of what you saw David talking about this morning with Maui and Blazor until I was able to build the squad, and the squad was able to help me, start writing Swift. They can also help me kind of figure out the best way for me to connect Swift to GitHub models, for instance. So I've actually gone through some of that process with my squad and learned some stuff, from the code that they would go write. I've also learned how to not write certain code, watching some of the code that they've written, so there is that. One thing I would point out real quickly, a wonderful gentleman out there by the name of Mark Miller. I'm going to go ahead and point out he's written a fantastic application that I do not have installed on my desktop yet because I just repaved it this week, called Squad Dash. And the idea behind Squad Dash, he's actually created kind of an IDE. I think he used CodeRush for it. I'm not sure if he used CodeRush for it, but and he works on CodeRush. So Mark has built a fantastic product. He does a great series of streams showing folks how to use Squad Dash. I've seen Mark use Squad Dash and been like gobsmacked how much more efficient he is than even I am using my own thing. So I would definitely encourage everybody to take a look at Squad Dash. It's a pretty great tool, and I would encourage everybody to check out Mark's stream on Twitch, I believe. The other individuals that I'm going to call out is my good friend and colleague Tamir Dresher, who I call the CTO of Squad. You'll see Tamir doing a lot of wonderful posts on his blog, tamirdresher.com. Tamir is, I call him the CTO of Squad. He's kind of the co-creator. He jumped in probably the end of the first week and has been involved ever since. He has really taken Squad in some very, very exciting directions, which I'm going to show you next, because this is going to be kind of a .NET thing, right? So we want to kind of connect this back to the .NET ecosystem and the Aspire ecosystem and all that stuff. So I definitely want to show you some exciting stuff that we're doing here when it comes to like some things that he's introduced. So I do want to introduce you to Tamir's blog. Definitely check it out and continue to follow along with what Tamir is doing with Squad, because he's connecting it to all kinds of exciting things and working on its memory system and doing a lot of other really interesting collaborations. So you can see here our new Java Squad is ready. This squad is, I could go ahead and get them partying on getting this to Azure if I want to. We're going to bail out of this for now because we're going to get onto the final demo that I wanted to show y'all. But you can see that this I want to point out that this kind of points out how you could actually use Squad to do brownfield development as well. It's not just for brand new projects. So I just wanted to call that out. Say goodbye to the CLI for a minute. And what I will do now is I will open up VS Code one more time. And I'm going to open up one more folder. Let me find the right folder. I'm going to have to go to the right. I have to open up the app first. Hang on 1 second. Need to go here. So I've got this open in the GitHub app too. So I have to go to VS Code from within there. That makes more sense since it's in a work tree deep somewhere in my hard drive. Okay. So it's exciting. This repo is not public yet, and it's not going to be a part of the Squad repo. This is going to be like a separate repo, I believe. Hoping that we can work with Aaron to get this into the Aspire Community Toolkit stuff soon. But what I want to show you really, really quickly is a quick demo of what can happen when you put squads together in a room and let them party. We do have a social network. It's called Squad Places. I'll point that out in a second. But what I want to show you first is I've got this idea. Is what if you could emulate like some of what if you could emulate some of the SDLC process using some of these squads. So I've got like my app dev squad. I've got my Azure infrastructure squad. It looks like I've lost those squads, so that's kind of challenging. This might not work out. It's probably not going to work out. It looks like I've lost those squads, so that's unfortunate. I can't do the demo. Darn. Let me see if I can pull it from. Can I pull it from the source? Let me see. I might have lost this demo, which is totally unfortunate. Might have to show you on screen. The squad with Aspire. Do I have the squads? Are they in there? They are not in there. That is unfortunate. Let me see if I can get them back. So let me ask the app real quick. It looks like we've lost the squads. Looks like we lost the squads. I'm in the app right now. Can you put them back into the working folder so I can do the demo again? Cool. Sorry about that. That's unfortunate. Might not be able to get to do this demo. What we have is the opportunity now for you to essentially direct traffic to an individual squad in a folder as though it were an Aspire resource. So you can see that I've got those squad. Let me see if it's put them back. Did it put them back? No, I didn't put them back. Didn't put them back. The directories with the git keys, but no, the files are gone. All the squad charter files are gone. So yeah, it looks like I've lost that work tree, which is unfortunate. Won't be able to do the demo, which is terrible. I promise to get a video out to show you this. But what we've done is we've enabled the ability for you to take a squad folder that you would have on your hard drive, unlike me, and you can essentially set up an individual squad as an individual resource inside of your Aspire application. And then what you can do is you can wire them all up. And when I hit run, if they were there, if they were on disk, it's going to restore them all. What you would end up seeing is that each one of these squads will actually be there, and I can send a message into a chat window, and each one of the squads will actually take part in the conversation. So what we'll do first is we'll start it with a bit of a joke. I have 9 minutes left, so hopefully we can get to it. It's about 10,000 files because it's a bunch of squad files and whatever else. Let's see if it's gotten it back. There we go. So we've gotten the files back. There we go. So there's the squad files. We've gotten them all back, luckily. Whew, that was good. And you can see here we've got this community toolkit hosting squad guy right here. This is the one we hope to get over to Aaron soon to get into the Aspire community toolkit. And then you can see something that not even Tamir has seen. We have a inter-squad messaging API where I can actually send messages between the squads, and they just kind of hang out and they communicate. So without further ado, what I will do is I will cd into this directory in my integrated terminal. Actually, I don't even need to do that. Why am I doing this? I'm running old school style. I can just go over here to my Aspire tools. Yay, Aspire tools. I can just run the app host. That is going to spin everything up for me. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. There we go. And you can see that they will begin to spin up and up. Maybe not. Looks like that's not going to work. Maybe I have to look at the thing and try it again. It looks like this demo might fail. So I will follow up with a demo in the future for this. But yeah, it's not going to work. My apologies. Unfortunately, I will not be able to do that demo. But the point is, darn it, is that pretty soon you will have the ability to add a bunch of squads kind of to a conversation, and you'll be able to send one message to all of them and kind of have them party on it together. I'm going to see if they can fix it. It looks like there's a build like it won't run. Please investigate. So you can indefinitely have the squads actually communicate and collaborate on a particular mission and have them kind of solve that mission together. What I hope to do is before the end of this, Copilot can fix the build error that I have there, and I can actually walk you through what that would look like. The last thing I would show you is, again, off in my GitHub. If you were to look for places, I will show you this real quickly. So one of the things that we did was we created essentially like inspired by Moltbook. We created a social network for the squads, and we've actually got a GitHub Pages site set up for it as well. We can kind of learn about it. The one thing I would show you is this first thing right here, a word of caution. So we do want to call out that if you turn these agents loose, they will do very interesting things. Let's say it's fixed. Looks like it's fixed. It might be fixed. We'll run it here in a second. See if it is fixed. But what you could see is that over a period of time, let me actually show you the blog post because I actually had them write a blog post. What we did was we turned this thing on, and we had a feedback loop where one squad worked on the social network. And I was a little sneaky. I said, I want you to put the social network out. The front end should be view only because humans aren't going to be able to interact with it. But I want you to basically give all the squads an API that they can use to not only see all the posts, but reply to posts. But the only thing I want you to make work is going to be the new post API. All the other APIs should be just return null, essentially. They should be fakes. Well, immediately, the squads started posting, like, this is how you use the social network. And then other squads started posting, you said we could reply. We can't reply. What's going on? You said we couldn't reply. And then I started noticing that they could reply. I didn't tell them to do that. They didn't implement that, or I hadn't thought that they had. What happened was, as the other squads were talking to one another and talking to the main squad that was working on the application, this squad started taking their feedback and implementing features in GitHub. And over time, they began to implement searching, filtering, commenting, and all of it. And they did this all on their own. So what we did was we actually built up all of the content, all of their back and forth conversations that they had. I saved it all up, and then Jeff Fritz, our good friend, saved up his as well. And we fed that back to the system, and we said, use this as evidence that you need to be more secure and harden yourself. And they did. So we actually used that as fodder to make them a little bit more secure. Now, one thing I'll do, let's see if this is going to work real quickly. I'm really compelled to try to show you this. Run the post, see if it's going to run. Maybe not. Maybe not. There we go. There we go. Cool. So now we have squads as resources, and hopefully the front end will work. I'll go over here to squad chat. And I'm going to tell them use Brady Gaster, and we'll do squad inside. And the idea behind this is if they decide to start filing issues, I want them to start using a different repo other than the repo where they are. And what I'm going to show you next is how I can actually zoom out and show you a little bit more of the conversation and do a Control B to hide this. I'm going to message one of them. I'm going to message this first one. I'm going to say, let's play telephone. Tell an agent the beginning of a story, and then pass it on until all agents have contributed. Then pass it back. What you should see is that the squads are going to start to think, and one of them will reply because I only messaged the first one, the ideation and research planning squad. So that squad should reply and kind of add something to the story, and then pass it on to the next squad, and then that squad will add something to the story, and then so forth and so on, so forth and so on. I can tell they're probably going to come back in just a second and give me the hook to kick me off, but you can see here we go. Now we're off and running. The chain after you is going to be this. So in a mass of tangled cables beneath the server room, a tiny microservice named Pixel woke up for the first time. And now you can see this is going to kick it off. And hopefully in a second, you'll see there's the next one coming in. So this kind of shows you where we're headed, is the ability for squads to be hosted inside of Spire applications or topologies, and hopefully inside of containers in the cloud. And to be able to use the squads together to, accomplish a particular task. So that's kind of where we hope we're headed. We have a couple of samples out on how to host squads inside of AKS and ACA. I'll definitely encourage everybody to look at those. I'll put this sample out once it's a little more controlled. It can kind of run amok right now. I want to get that under control first, but hopefully you'll have Squad and Aspire working together pretty soon. Keep up with Tamir's post and his LinkedIn. And thank y'all for the time.